Hello, my friends, and welcome to our service for the 15th of November. Can you believe it's already the middle of November 2020? Welcome to the service today. We're so glad to have you with us. My name is Paul Chappell, and I've been with you most of the weeks online like this since April. And the Sundays that I haven't been here, of course, you've had our Minister of Music, Roger Bond, doing the services, as he did last week. And I want to thank him and all of those who worked with him on that wonderful service for Remembrance Day. As you notice today, I'm not wearing one of my sort of characteristic bow ties. I had some further dental work done yesterday, and I just couldn't get the excitement up about putting on a tight collar and a tie. I'd hoped it would all be done in 2 rounds of 2 or 3 hours each, but I have to have some more in 2 weeks, so that'll be fun. But for today, I'm here, and I'm really glad to be with you and looking forward to our service. We're glad that you're with us, whether you're a regular member of Wesley Church or whether you're someone watching maybe regularly or maybe for the first time. Welcome, welcome to our service. I'll do the speaking bits, and in between you'll have the beautiful hymns and anthem or solo arranged for and played by Roger, and then all of the singers sing their part. It's quite wonderful. And we have the words to follow along, so I hope you will follow along in those words as you enjoy this service, and hopefully as you feel and hear God's presence today and in your life. Feel God all around you, that you can feel the creation of God all around you, who created and is creating, that you can feel the light and the beauty of Christ in all that you do, and that you can feel the movement and the flowing of the Holy Spirit with you. To represent all of that today, we light this candle of Jesus, this candle of Christ, to acknowledge that light is always with us. Even when it appears that it's nighttime, Christ's light is ever with us and ever a part of us.
So and long to trust that your dear mouth will say again, let there be light, a clear new day. But when we thirst in this dry night, we drink from hot wells poisoned with love children. And when we strain to hear a steady morning beam, our ears are blocked by stifled noise and howls of desolation. Our sisters, brothers, wild men, clawing at the gates of bread. Our own feeble hands, aim to seize the proud you bear, and work our pride and guide through the whole and
We have two readings today. The first from Psalm 90, which will be very familiar if you sang along last week with O God, our help in ages past. You'll hear bits of it in here. Psalm 90, right at the beginning. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You turn us back to dust and say, turn back, you mortals. For 1,000 years in our sight are like yesterday when it is past, or like a watch in the night. You sweep them away. They are like a dream, like grass that is renewed in the morning. For in the morning it flourishes and is renewed. In the evening it fades and withers. And our second reading comes from Matthew. We've been journeying through Matthew's Gospel all year. We began at the beginning of last Advent last year. And next Sunday will be our last Sunday in Matthew, and then we change over again for Advent. Advent's only 2 weeks away, can you believe it? In Matthew's Gospel then. And this part of the Gospel would have been in red letters in my old grandmother's Bible. She read from the Bible every night. And if my brother and I were staying there, we heard her read from them. And I loved it when we got to the red lettered bit. So Jesus speaking says, For it is as if a man going on a journey summoned his slaves and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. The one who had received the 5 talents went off at once and traded with them, and made 5 more talents. In the same way the one who had 2 talents made 2 more talents. But the one who had received the 1 talent went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. Then the one who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more talents, saying, Master, you handed over to me 5 talents. See, I have made 5 more. His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been trustworthy in these few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." And the one with 2 talents also came forward, saying, "Master, you handed over to me 2 talents. See, I have made 2 more talents." His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." Then the one who had received 1 talent also came forward, saying, "Master, I knew that you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid, and I hid your 1 talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours." But his master replied, "You wicked and lazy slave. You knew, did you, that I reap where I did not sow and gather where I do not scatter? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was mine with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who made the 10 talents. For all those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. As for the worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth." That is God's word for us today. Thanks be to God.
Open now our hearts to wisdom, keep us numbering our days. Generations long behind us honored you their dwelling place. As a blink of life's duration, just a dream of yesterday. Dust to dust, our lovely life spans, age to age, your perfect grace. We are children of our planet, we will all be quickly gone. Though we thrive with breath and heartbeat, we can never know how long. Open now our hearts to wisdom, keep us numbering our days. Gladly mindful of eternity, let us live a holy pace. You have been our sanctuary, faithful God, from age to age. Open now our hearts to wisdom, keep us numbering our days. Fill our hand for our forebears with the promise of your grace. All our lives, God, make a legacy for our children's children's faith.
As I think I've told you several times now already, when I was a little boy, I loved to collect things, especially collecting rocks. Excuse me, whenever we went somewhere, if there was a beach or anything, I was out collecting rocks. If there was a woodland, I would be out collecting the wild berries. And if there weren't either of those two, usually we just didn't stop. So, when I was a very little boy, I took a rock something like this. I hope you can see this. I hope the focus will work. It's simply a little piece of Canadian shield granite. It's quite beautiful. It would be even more beautiful, of course, under the water, which is usually where I found them. It was a lovely, smooth piece. Now, as a boy, I thought a great deal. I wasn't the healthiest little codger. And so I tended to have lots of time to think. And I thought about the fact that I knew that somehow crystals grew in the ground because people had to dig in the ground to find them. This I knew, you see. So people had to dig in the ground to find crystals. So they must be created in the ground. They must grow in the ground. And having had our smaller gardens, and at that point my grandmother's beautiful big vegetable garden, I understood it about cutting up an old potato and letting it heal over a little bit in the hot sun, and then planting them in the ground, and from that one little piece of old wilted looking potato you had a whole pile of them. Beautiful fresh new potatoes. An idea. So I took a rock rather like this, it's probably still here somewhere out in the backyard, and I dug rather a deep little hole, or thought it was as a little guy. It was probably 4, maybe. I think it was been before school days. And I put it in the ground and buried it. And I was sure I would remember that where it was because it was right near a rose bush. Now, no roses have grown there for decades, but somewhere in the ground is a little rock, and I believed that each year it would just grow more and more. It would grow crystals. Well, of course, that didn't happen. Sort of like the poor, rather dumb servant who took the talent and buried it in the ground and knew it was safe there, as though somehow mystically he expected it to just grow in the ground. That always makes me think of taking one of these crystals. Maybe it was one like this where there was more feldspar showing because you could see the crystals, or maybe one of these that was sparkly. I don't know, but I think it was a round one. I remember thinking that that was the kind that would grow crystals the best. I have no idea why. But whenever I hear the parable of the talents, I think of that. Now, we have no idea, when we read that, what we're talking about here. Now let's imagine the talents were probably metal, of course, likely not gold, and maybe silver. They could have been bronze, they could have been copper, they could have been tin. A talent was a weight measure. A weight measure. And one talent was equivalent to 37.2 kilograms. Now this is according to Dr. Percy Gardner, and he should know, because he was the Disney Professor of Archaeology at Cambridge University. And by the way, that's not Walt Disney and, hi-ho stuff going on. That this is a Disney from the 1700s endowed that chair. So as the Disney Professor of Archaeology at Cambridge and later a professor at Oxford, he should know. So 37.2 kilograms. Well, you think that's got to be 70 pounds. So we're not talking about, I always thought it was like this when I was a kid. Oh, there's this thing and it makes it grow. Well, even of silver, 70 pounds would be a great lump. Great huge lump. So if he had, the one who had 5 talents, got 186 kilograms. So almost easily 300 pounds of whatever it was. Whatever metal. And the other one got 74.4 kilograms, and of course the one that only got 1 got 37.2, according to Professor Gardner, our Disney professor. 186 kilograms of metal, you can do a lot with that. Nowadays you could have had it made into jewelry and sold it. There are all kinds of things you could do with a talent like that. Now, a talent was along with other of those words. We've heard of drachma and those kinds of, a talent was one of those same measuring words. And it's a very ancient word, going right back into the Indo-European foundations of our language. Now, this is what interested me. In all the sermons I've heard on this parable, and as an organist, I've heard a lot of them. Well, certainly every 3 years, and sometimes more often. Certainly every 3 years when it came up. But also, sometimes to raise money, they'd have what they would call a talent auction, where they'd give every person $5 or $10, and they had to go out and do something with it. They would buy yarn and knit it and make things, or they would buy this and do this and that with it. And so we would have a sermon on this parable. Not once did anyone talk about this talent as a measure, as a weight, and talent as a thing we can do. A thing you can do something with, and a thing you can do. Talent, that word in English, comes from this parable. It doesn't emerge from anywhere else. It is this parable that in the 13th century, that's the 1200s, in England, the word talent, or talentia, as it was in Latin, talentia, talentium, that became this word for something you could do. You've got a skill, you've got a talent. It's something you could do for God. I believe it was first used for skills that could literally be used for God. So I'm guessing preaching and singing, perhaps, stained glass work, any of those sorts of things. That may have been where it began. And then it became any God-given gift or skill. It's your talent, your ability. How many talent shows have there been? And they had no idea it was based on 37.2 kilograms of some metal or other. 37.2 kilograms, that's a heck of a talent. So our talents, the word that we use, the word that we've used now for almost a millennium, comes from that. And by the way, this word, way back, talent as a measurement, that goes back another millennium before Christ, and maybe 2 millennia before Christ. So we're talking about 4,000 years ago. This word was being used for measuring talent in its other forms, in other languages. And now it means something we can do with something. So, in the psalm, it says, "Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world." Listen to this again now. Remember, we're people who often live in valleys, in deserts. These are desert people we're talking to. We're talking to the people of the Levant, of deserts and of course great oceans, but also mountains. "Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting you are God." The mountains get mentioned even before the world. Well, the whole world was immeasurable to them. They couldn't understand that. They wouldn't have known it was this beautiful blue round orb. Not quite round, actually, but roundish. They couldn't have seen the pictures that we've seen taken from space of this planet. The biggest thing in their world were these mountains. So the world was huge, but almost unmeasurable. Mountain. Think of a great mountain to them. Or a great mountain of talent. Before the mountain of talent, or the mountains were brought forward. Then it says this. It says, "We are dust, and to dust we shall return," as we will do again, hopefully in person again this year on around Ash Wednesday. "For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past, or like a watch in the night." Sometimes, yesterday when it's gone, you can hardly believe it was yesterday. Believe it was a whole day. Do you know those feelings? Or when you look at a photo of someone who has been gone for a few years, it usually takes a few. You look at them and you almost can't believe that they really were here. My mother's been gone just over 17 years now. And in some ways, it's like she was still here a week ago, a day ago. And in some ways, it feels like maybe she never existed at all. You know that feeling, or am I just crazy? It's saying 1,000 years to God is like nothing. A mountain is like nothing. And yet for us in our world, we are these, whether it is the 80 years and 10, or 80 if we're lucky, or 90 or 100, or many, many more years we live. It seems so important and so urgent right now. Yet 1,000 years, 10 generations and more, 20 generations and more, are like a night watch, a day gone. So we have in the psalm these great mountains, this 1,000 years, this millennium, that we can just imagine being as nothing. God has been around for so long that a millennium is nothing. But to us, our days, our years, our weeks, our decades are precious and small and to be cherished and held on to. Do you see what I'm talking about? We get so into holding on to our days. Oh, I don't have many days left now, so I'd better enjoy this one. Or have you ever heard yourself, because I'm sure you've heard others say it, but have you ever heard yourself say, well, now, I don't know how many more Christmases we're going to have. Or, I don't know what we're going to do now because we couldn't get together for that event, but, we'll never have a chance again. The psalm and the gospel together tell us that our little rock, our little talent, our little thing that we try to hold on to so much is as nothing to God. In other words, we must understand that these little things don't matter. How often, when you think back, you just try thinking back, 10, 20, 30 years, more if you like, and remember sometime that you got really mad. I mean, really losing your brain mad. I'm thinking of a couple. And look back now and see that it was nothing. Nothing. It was nothing. As I told you yesterday, I had dental work done. Mercifully, I had one of those little blue pills first, which meant that I remember the first tooth being dug apart, and I remember a little bit beyond that, and I sort of remember needles going in, and I sort of remember the end, but I don't remember much about the rest. Nothing. Yet our talents aren't nothing, are they? They're amazing. They're so often what makes us, us. What is that person? Oh my gosh, they make the best butter tarts. There was a lady in my life, a nurse, a community nurse, who worked in the schools. Her name was Mrs. Grace Reed, and I loved Grace. She was just buried a few weeks ago. And when we thought about Grace, my family and I, we always remembered Grace's butter tarts. A few years ago for my birthday appeared some of Grace's butter tarts. Or we can remember someone who made beautiful sweaters, or someone who did beautiful stitch work, or someone who wrote beautiful music, or poetry, or painted, or drew, or taught, or could fix a car in a second, it seemed like. Their talents amaze us, to use that word. If you aren't a car person, and you take a car into someone and you hear it going, you know how they go. And you take it to someone who really knows what they're talking about, and they go, oh, well, that's your ummer flats and your skizzle slop, and your skizzle slop and your ummer flats together. We have no idea what they're saying. In one of the churches where I worked, there was a gentleman who was very into audio recording. He believed still in reel-to-reel. Of course, this was just as CDs were coming in. I'm talking about the early 90s, the early 1990s. Wanted to make sure you didn't think it was the 1890s. And so he had a reel-to-reel machine, and he listened, and he would tell me about the decibels and the bissel-doos and how this recording has to be there, and this mic has to be exactly there to get this recording, and this to this. Well, he recorded the anthems that the choir sang just beautifully. Did an amazing job. But I didn't understand how he could do that. That's often what our talents are. They're a mystery, aren't they? How are you able to do that quilting? My cousin who quilts these beautiful things, I've shown you a couple. How do you do them? When someone asks me, how do I compose music or how do I write poetry, I don't know. Because these talents that we are given, especially the important ones, the ones that define us for us and for others, we don't know how they come. Mostly, we don't know how we do them. We've been trained in our field, whatever it is, or our hobby, or our skill, or our ability, or our talent. But a lot of it is from our Creator. A lot of it comes right from our Creator. And we are asked not to take our talent and to use a totally different part of the Bible, of course. Hide it under a bushel. That isn't what we're supposed to do with the talent. You see, there it is. Ha! Now it's gone. like a shell game of your talents and your abilities. No, no, no. There's your talent. Be grateful to God for it. And use it. Well, use it. Could you be knitting hats for the people who are in need? One of the number one things that they ask for at places like Wesley Center are warm socks. I honest to goodness, I can make hats on one of those circle looms, but I've never really learned how to knit properly. And I see a friend of mine, a dear friend, now gone, Dr. David Gary. David knit the most beautiful socks. He also was a glorious flute player. Our talents are important. And so if we've been given the 5 talents, let me get my math out here again, I don't want to try and do it in my head, 186 kilograms, that's the 5 talents. Well, he went out and used it. And so he came back to his master, God, with another 5 talents, another 186 kilograms. My goodness, that's almost 400 kilograms. Nearly half a ton. Oh, great masses and stuff. The one with 2, still lots of talent, lots to go. 74 kilograms, 150 pounds. Oh, another pile, 150 pounds. There you go. 1 talent. Clunk. What does God want us to do? Does God want us to keep our talent, our ability, our skill, our gift hidden? No. God wants our gifts used. There are people who write the most beautiful letters, or who make beautiful pastoral calls. There are so many skills out there. One of the skills we can't use these days is the skill of hugging, I'm afraid. But that hug, that sensation, we can still send it in a kind of prayer and meditation to others. Think of them and hug a pillow. I send hugs all the time. Well, this is a lot of stuff to have talked about. Big talents and little talents and mountains and 1,000 ages in God's sight. What's important is that we use what God gave us, and we use it wisely. Whether it's great amounts of money, which some people have, great amounts of a skill like singing or playing or painting or writing. Those skills should be used and then brought back to God. And you notice the one who brought the 10 back, that one was given to him. To those to whom much is given, much will be rewarded. You bring that talent back, there might even be more. New vistas and new horizons for you. In these difficult days, as it gets physically darker out day by day, a terrible time of the year really, in those ways, make sure you get up early and glory in the morning light, because the morning light is beautiful. But revel in what abilities you and those whom you love have. Celebrate them. When you go to look at buying Christmas presents, it's easy to go online, go on Amazon or one of those things, go click, 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 zoom, right onto your credit card. Or do you find the neighbor who can knit a sweater? Or the lady down the street who makes beautiful mittens? Or that doctor of science and flute player, David Gary, who made amazing socks. He and his husband made the most beautiful socks. David went all over the world. He was a world-famous flutist, and he taught all over the world. And as he was on the plane, he would make these beautiful socks. Well, find those people and make Christmas gifts of those things. Maybe your gift was canning this year. Maybe you've got a storeroom full of chili sauce and strawberry jam and cherry jelly, those kinds of things. Please, give what you have to God and the community, but also enjoy it yourself. We're allowed to. We're not supposed to feel badly about them. We're not supposed to be burying them. There's the town.
and voices chanting melody, with words that reach beyond the page, we comprehend your mystery. In every flower and every tree, we see your great diversity, yet greater still we see your love, expressed in our humanity. Your hands that paint majestic skies, and voices chanting melody, with words that reach beyond the page, we comprehend your mystery. Then with our hearts, our hands, our minds, we share our gifts with all the world, our spirits soar beyond the veil, to touch the very face of God. To hands that paint majestic skies, and voices chanting melody, with words that reach beyond the page, we comprehend your mystery.
Let us pray together, using the words that Jesus taught while he was still with us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Every breath we take is singing, every leaf unfurled a sigh, every tree for decades standing, every peak majestic pine. Show God's creating glories, miracles and wonders all. We ourselves are revelations, now God's recreating all. After farmers through forests, life begins from all around. When we're lost in deepest sadness, God can touch us, love us found. Poison fills our lakes and rivers. God helps people stand and shout, moving helpers into places, bringing light and chasing doubt. We come alive with sparkling colors, our endangered, fragile, pure. God calls scientists and seems to grow and grow. Trust in God and working strongly makes what difference this sweet road. Voices raised in singing, Christ commands, we love each one, not just those that we agree with, every person barring none. Come and sit around my table, speaking of you follow me. All the world and all creation should know love you've given free.
So we come towards the end of yet another time together, my friends. I hope you have found in the music and in the words something to bless you, something to give you an idea to think about. When I'm writing sermons, I always think of it as something to chew on, something to think about in the week ahead. Hiding your talents, burying your rock. So, next week won't look just as this service does, because next week Roger has a much-deserved week off. So my father will be back playing for us. Remember back in the summer we had a couple where Dad came and played the piano for us. I'm afraid I can't get the piano tuner in before then, so it's going to be a bit honky-tonky sounding the piano, but my father still plays beautifully. I'm so proud of him, and I love working with him. We did so many services together at Rock Chapel United Church, months of them. We got to sort of know each other's cues and ideas. That will be next week. And then the week after that, do you know what that is? That's Advent! I can't believe it. Without all the fall fairs and the Christmas bazaars and everything, it doesn't really seem like it can be, does it? And yet the TV's full of Christmas movies and the stores are full of Christmas stuff, so it must be coming. I want to thank Roger again for the service last week and all of those who worked with him, and thank him and all of his minstrels who made today's service musical and beautiful. He does more work, folks, than you could ever know behind the scenes. He's quite remarkable, and we all love he and Barbara. We love them very, very much. And so, now that we're coming to the end, I ask God to look into your lives and to bring to you and all of those whom you love blessings. May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and look upon you with kindness. And may God's love be with you today and tomorrow and always. God bless you, my dear, dear friends.